Hey guys, so before I start this video, thank you guys for 10 subscribers. It really means a lot already. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about vanilla WoW racials and race class combinations in vanilla. And I'm going to go through the alliance first, then go on to the horde. This will be the second part of my vanilla WoW beginner guide series. So if you haven't seen the first one, the class guide, be sure to check that out, link down below. But we're going to be starting with the alliance side. And then we're going to go on to the horde side. So before we start this out, I'm going to talk about why choosing a race is important. Well, if you're really new, first of all, it chooses where you start out. It chooses your racial mount. It gives you racials, and there's two types of racials. There's racial like active abilities, and the racial passives. And passives are on throughout the whole time. They're like infinite buffs. They're always there. But anyway guys, let's get right into this. I'm going to start with the alliance side first and the humans. So guys, like I said, we're going to be going over the humans first, the alliance racials, then moving on to the horde racials. And at the end we're going to recap and talk about what I think is the best race class combinations for both PvE and PvP. So we're starting out with the humans. Now humans start out in the Elven Forest, right next to Stormwind, the capital city for the alliance. The racial mount is a horse. If you click P by default, you'll go to the skill book, spell book, and if you go to the general tab, you'll see all the racials and the general skills. So humans have diplomacy, reputation gains increased by 10%. Now this is good for farming rep. They also have the human spirit, increases spirit by 5%. That increases your mana, so more spirit equals more mana. And this is good for spellcasters and healers. They got mace specialization skills with two-handed maces increased by 5, and sword specialization, same thing but for swords. That's good for warriors. They also have their racial ability called perception. Dramatically increases stealth detection for 20 seconds. So if I use this and a rogue was next to me and he was stealth, I can see him easier, and dramatically increases my stealth detection. Alright guys, so next up we got Dwarf. They start in Coldridge Valley right next to Ironforge, another major capital city for the Alliance. Their racial mount is a ram. Now Stoneform is their active racial, and while active grants immunity to bleed, poison, and disease effects. In addition, armor increased by 10%, lasts 8 seconds, 3-minute cooldown. That's very good defensive cooldown for dwarfs. They have a gun specialization, a gun skill increased by 5, frost resistance, where's that right here, increased by 10, and find treasure, allows the dwarf to sense nearby treasure, making it appear on the minimap. Alright, so on to the Night Elf, one of my favorite races in the game. They start in Shadowglen right next to Darnassus, the capital city for the Night Elves. Their racial mount is a tiger. Right here, the racial active is Shadow Mill. It activates to slip into the shadows, reducing the chance for enemies to detect your presence. Lasts until cancelled or moving. Night Elf rogues and druids with Shadow Milled are more difficult to detect while stealth or prowling. Alright, so basically this is really good for PvP. You can go stealth basically, but you can't move while stealth. And it helps rogues and druids with being detected. Alright, so quickness, right here. Dodge chance increased by 1%. That's pretty good for tanks. Wisp spirit, transform into a wisp upon death, increasing speed by 50%. Now in vanilla, Night Elves are the only race to have a speed boost while being dead. So that's pretty good if you're getting ganked a lot. They also have nature resistance, increased by 10, so that's pretty nice. Last but not least for the alliance, the gnomes. Now they start in the same area the dwarfs do. Their racial mount is like a robot chicken. I don't really know honestly. Now their racial active is escape artist. Escape the effects of any immobilization or movement speed reduction effect. 1 second cast, 1 minute cooldown. Very good for PvP. They also have expansive mind right here. Intelligence increased by 5%. Very good for spellcast damage DPS. Excuse me. Arcane resistance they also have right around here. increased by 10, and they also have engineering specialists right here. Engineering skill increased by 15, the profession. We'll get more into that in a later video. Alright guys, so on to the Horde, the orcs. So they start in Durotar, right next to Orgrimmar, the main capital city for the Horde. Their racial mount is a wolf. Right here, their racial active is called Blood Fury. Increases base melee attack power by 25% for 15 seconds and reduces healing effects on you by 50% for 25 seconds. 2-minute cooldown. So this is pretty good for DPS melee guys. Also have hardiness. Chance to resist stun effects increased by additional 25%. Really good for PvP. Command right here, racial passive. Damage done by hunter and warlock pets increased by 5%. That's pretty nice if you're a hunter or warlock. Axe specialization. And skills with axes and two-handed axes increased by 5. So that's pretty nice if you're a warrior. Alright guys, on to the undead, one of my favorite races as well. So they start in Trispel Glaives, right next to the Undercity, a pretty big capital city for the Horde. The racial mount is a dead horse, an undead horse. So they have 2 racial actives actually. Will of the Forsaken provides immunity to charm, fear, and sleep while active. May also be used while already afflicted by charm, fear, or sleep. Lasts 5 seconds, 2-minute cooldown. Very good for PvP. What can I say? They also have Cannibalize. While activated, regenerates 7% of total health every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Only works on humanoid or undead corpses within 5 yards. Any movement, action, or damage taken while cannibalizing will cancel the effect. Very good for leveling and regenerating HP. They also have a minor one, underwater breathing. Underwater breath lasts 300% longer than normal. That's kind of good if you go AFK underwater, I guess. Also, shadow resistance increased by 10, so that's pretty nice. Second to last is going to be the Tauren. Now the Tauren starts in Camp Narache, pretty close to Thunderbluff, a pretty big city for the Horde. Their racial mount is a Kodo. They're going to be starting with the racial's War Stomp. Stuns up to 5 enemies within 8 yards for 2 seconds. 2-minute cooldown, 0.5 second cast. Pretty good. It's a nice stun. That's their racial active. And they also have Endurance right here. Total health increased by 5%. Very good for tanks. Taurens are very good tanks. Where else? Cultivation. Herbalism skill increased by 15. Another profession. Nature resistance increased by 10, so that's pretty nice as well. And last but not least guys, we got the trolls for the Horde side. Now they're going to be starting in Durotar, right where the orcs start, right next to Orgrimmar. The racial mount's going to be a raptor. For their racial active, it's going to be Berserking. Increases your casting and attack speed by 10 to 25%. At full HP, the speed increases 10%, with a greater effect up to 25%. And that varies if you're badly hurt when you activate Berserking. Last 10 seconds, 3-minute cooldown. That's very good for PvE caster DPS. Because if you get more haste off and you get more cast off, you're going to be doing more damage, obviously. Regeneration, racial passive, health regeneration rate increased by 10%. 10% of total health regeneration may continue during combat. Very good for leveling and questing. They also got beast slaying, damage dealt versus beasts increased by 5%. That's alright, I guess. They also got a throwing and bow specialization. Skill with throwing / bow weapons increased by 5. So right here and right here. Alright guys, so it's that part of the video where we talk about race class combinations and my opinions on them. What's the best for each side of the game. PvE and PvP. We're going to be talking about PvE first, and I'll let you guys know when we're talking about PvP. So before I start this, guys, races don't really matter as much as you think. If you don't want to play a race, then you don't have to. They just give a small bonus in racials. Except if you're a priest, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. Probably when I'm talking about the alliance side. So guys, excuse me. So we're going to be talking about the troll first, and mages. So for mages, for PvE, I'm going to say troll mage because berserking, very good. If you get more casts off, you get more DPS off, and mages love doing DPS. They're a pure DPS class, so that's very good. More haste is always good. For Warlock, I'm going to have to say Undead because they're Will of Forsaken, and the shadow resistance helps in some raids. Also, for Priest, I'm going to have to say Troll, mainly because of berserking again. More haste equals more casting equals more healing. For Rogue, I'm going to have to say the Orc because of their berserk ability. I don't really remember what it was called. I can't believe I don't remember. But basically it gives them more melee attack power. And that's always good for rogues, more DPS. Not like they need it anymore, haha. But very good for DPS. Druid, I mean, if you want to be Horde, you're going to have to be a Tauren. So Tauren's the best for Druid. For Shaman, I'm going to say Troll. Once again, because Shamans are mainly forced to heal in raids. So if you're healing, more haste equals more heals. For Hunter, I'm going to have to say Joel. Again, because of berserking, more casts, more arrows go out, more haste, more arrows, more DPS, very good. For Paladin, well, we're talking about the Horde side, so can't be a Paladin. So if you want to be a tank warrior, I'm going to have to say Tauren's the best because of their increased health pool. Very good for tanks. But if you want to be a DPS warrior, obviously Orc because of their berserk ability or whatever it's called. Rage, I don't remember, guys, I'm sorry, but gives them more melee attack power, so very good for DPS warriors. Alright guys, so now we're going to be talking about PvE on the Alliance side. For Mage, I'm going to have to say Gnome because of their intelligence increase equals more damage passively. Very, very good. For Warlock, Gnome again, same reason. Priest, alright, here we go. This is where it matters. So for Priest, I'm going to have to say the Dwarf. Why? Well, Priests have this really interesting thing where they get, whichever race they are determines some of their spells, right? And a dwarf priest gets Fear Ward, and that's very sought out in raids to put on healers and stuff. So Fear Ward is amazing. It basically protects you from fear. And so let's say a very good guild, highly respected guild, had a choice of a Night Elf priest or a Dwarf priest. They would choose the Dwarf priest if they had the same gear. Just hands down, they would. So, what else here? So yeah, so priest, dwarf, Alliance side, so obvious you have to. You don't have to if you don't want to play seriously, but if you want to seriously raid on PvE, Alliance side, dwarf priest is the way to go. So for rogue, I'm gonna have to say human because combat, sword specializations, very good. And increased reputation gains is always nice for farming rep. So for druid, I mean, this is all you got, boys. Night elf. For shaman, I mean, there is no shamans, so you're gonna have to roll horde. For hunter, I'm gonna have to say the dwarf. Why? Because the gun specialization and stone form's pretty nice as well. For paladin, human obviously, only race that can do it in the whole game. For warrior, I'm gonna have to say the night elf because of their extra dodge chance, and also the resistance to nature is pretty nice as well. If you want to be a tank, night elf is the way to go as a warrior, but if you want to be DPS, I'm gonna have to say human because of the sword specialization and mace, very nice for leveling as well. Alright guys, now we're going to talk about PvP for the horde side. We're going to start with mage again. So undead for horde, hands down. Will of Forsaken, amazing. gets you out of fears, resistance to fears. You have shadow resistance as well, very good against going up against warlocks, stuff like that. Also, the consume corpses racial active is actually pretty good for world PvP. It acts as like another advantage, so that's pretty nice. For warlock, I'm gonna have to say orc for warlock. Now, undead is very good for warlock as well because of Will of Forsaken. Same thing I said with the mages, except for orc and undeads. Orcs got that really nice chance to resist stuns. So if you're that kind of RNG guy, that kind of like, cause the orc ratio can be very OP, but it's kind of RNG. But if you don't want RNG, I'd say go undead. If you want RNG, go orc. But orc is very good for PvP. I'd say they're both tied for this. So warlock, orc, or undead, in my opinion, for PvP. So for priest, I'm gonna have to say undead again. Will of Forsaken is too OP, guys. It's insane. Rogue, undead again, same reason. Very good. For druid, only one available, obviously. For shaman, orc, why? Stuns, very good. Stun resistance, very good. And hunter, orc, I'd say. Why? Stun resistance again, very good. Also, the melee extra attack damage is okay for hunters. It's pretty okay. Can be a paladin, so why talk about that? Warriors, I'd say Tarn, increased HP, and also because of their stun, very good. Their stun racial active, very good for PvP. Alright guys, last but not least, the alliance side for PvP. We're going to be starting with the mage again. So for mages, I say gnomes because of the increased intellect buff, 5%, and also the escape artist ability. That's very nice for getting out of CC. For warlocks, gnomes, same reason. For priests, dwarf because of fear ward, very nice for PvP. For rogues, gnome again. For escape artists, for druids, I mean night elf, they're pretty good for PvP as well because of shadow meld, or shadow meld, my bad. Also, well, you can't be a shaman. Also for hunter, I'd say night elf because of their dodge chance and nature damage resist is pretty nice, but mainly because of, I mean, dodge chance and shadow meld again. For paladin, I would say dwarf. Why? Because of stone form, very nice. Resistance to frost is okay for going up against mages, but mainly because of storm form. Oh my god, stone form. So yeah, for warrior, I'd have to go with gnome again because escape artist is too OP, guys. I would say that the two best races in the game for PvP, alliance side would be the gnome, and horde side all around would be the undead, I'd say, in my opinion. So yeah guys, that's about it for the race class combinations guide. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please like the video if you enjoyed or if it helped you in any way. And I'll see you guys later, guys. Peace out.